So today we are starting with the next part of chapter 10, which is now looking at helping behavior and the influences on helping behavior. So this entire chapter is called, social influences on behavior. And so when we talk about social behavior and the behavior that we see in our social environment, helping behavior is a big part of that. Now, if you've ever gone to the shops or you've ever gone to a different country and you're at some kind of like a tourist site, or, you're at an airport, or you're, at a train station, somewhere where there's a lot of people around you, essentially, there is a very high chance that you would have witnessed or you may have engaged in helping behavior. So either you've seen somebody else help another person, or you've actually helped that person yourself, okay? And helping behavior isn't like a huge thing. You don't have to, save a person's life to help them. Helping behavior is simply holding the door for someone when you see that they're walking behind you, that they're coming behind you and they've got their hands full. If someone's dropped some things on the floor, as we see this picture here, you help them pick it up and you give that to them. Okay, if someone needs a little bit of help, or if someone's running towards the elevator and you're already inside, you click the open door so that it doesn't close on them. So that's what helping behavior is. Helping behavior is any kind of behavior when a person or a group of people assist somebody in order to improve their lives and well-being, okay? And that doesn't have to be in a really significant way. It could just be by doing a little thing that makes it easier for them, like helping them pick up something they've dropped on the floor. Okay, now obviously helping behavior can be done from person to person, as we see in this image here, or it can be done from group to group. Obviously, if the helping behavior that you want to do requires more effort or requires more people to do it, then obviously it'll probably be helpful if you can work as a group there. Okay, that's what helping behavior is, and it is important for you to know the definition of helping behavior. And the key words of this definition are: a person or group of people engage in assisting, and the assisting somehow helps to improve the other person's life or their well-being. Okay, that's what helping behavior is. And the topic is called influences on helping behavior. So for the rest of this spread, we're just looking at what are the different factors or the influences that really impact whether we will help someone or whether we won't help someone. Because sometimes, even if we do want to help someone, we might actually feel reluctant to help them. We might think, okay, do they really need our help? Is there someone else who could help them better than I can? All that kind of stuff. So that's essentially what we're covering today. Before we look at the specific influences on helping behavior, we need to be able to classify that helping behavior falls under a type of behavior that is called prosocial. Prosocial is the opposite of antisocial. Okay, we all know what antisocial is. It's when you do something that goes against the normal social norms or standards. So prosocial behavior is the opposite of that. Prosocial behavior is doing something, any kind of behavior, any kind of act where it is with the intention of helping someone, helping society, making society a better place. And prosocial behavior is really admired and looked upon favorably because a lot of the time when we engage in prosocial behavior, it might involve a personal cost to the helper. Okay, not monetary or financial cost always, but it could involve time. For example, if this guy is running towards his train and then he sees this lady coming through, rather than pushing her over and, trying to get through the door, he might actually open the door for her. Even though he's late for his train and that could be a personal cost of his time, he's still opening the door for her. Okay, and that's an example of a prosocial behavior. If this person is volunteering at a soup kitchen or volunteering at a homeless shelter, serving food, they might be taking out their free time from their life to do this thing, okay? And that is what we call as a personal cost. So personal costs can come in the form of money, okay? But they can also come in the form of other things as well. For example, time, for example, effort, okay? Physical effort can be one of those things as well. But if you look past all of these things and you think, okay, money is not a big issue, I just want to help. Time is not a big issue, I just want to help. Effort is not a big issue, I just want to help. Then that means that you are engaging in prosocial behavior. Any behavior that benefits society and benefits your social environment. So remember, helping behavior is a type of prosocial behavior. Now, in order for us to understand this concept of helping behavior, there's a really, really important case study that we look at, and it's called the case of Kitty Catherine Genovese. Okay, so Catherine Genovese, or otherwise known as Kitty, was actually a woman who kind of really made us understand this idea of how humans help each other and to what extent a human will help another person. So Kitty Catherine Genovese, who I'll call Kitty from now on, she was basically the victim of a murder. Okay, so what was happening was in 1964, she was returning home from work. I think she worked a night shift or something. And as she was approaching, like, you know, in those movies, you see the apartment blocks in New York. So she was approaching her apartment block, you know, ready to go in. And then she was attacked and stabbed, okay, by a man. Now, this man attacked and stabbed her, but she wasn't dead. It's not like she died from the first stab. She was still kind of like trying to escape. She was still somewhat alive. She could have been saved. So she started screaming. She started screaming, help, help, please, somebody help me. And obviously everyone in the apartment block would have heard that, and people turned on their lights, they opened their curtains, they looked outside. One guy in that apartment block even said, hey, who's out there? Who is it? I'm going to call the police. And at this point, the man who attacked Kitty, who was later identified as Winston Moseley, he actually ran away because he could hear somebody was about to intervene. Somebody was about to step in and help Kitty by calling the police. So he ran away and he kind of like hid behind the corner, okay, just looking from a distance to see, is someone actually going to come and help Kitty, or can I go a second time and stab her again? Now, all the people in the apartment block, even though they heard her calls for help, no one actually came down. Everyone was just, you know, from like looking down from within their apartment windows, and not really coming down to actually help Kitty. So when Winston realized a few minutes, you know, in that no one is actually coming down to help her, he decided to go in and finish the job. And he decided to go in and stab her again. And obviously the second, the third, the fourth time she was stabbed, you know, she died. She died fatally. And even like after the ambulance was eventually finally called, they were not able to save her. So the attack first began at 3:20 a.m. Like I said, she worked night shift, but it was not until 3:50 a.m. that someone first contacted the police. So you can see that reluctance to help, that reluctance and that hesitance to step in and to actually help this woman led to this woman dying when definitely there was a chance that she could have been saved. And this idea that we will always be hesitant to help someone because we think, okay, you know what, I'm on the top floor of this apartment block. Maybe the guys at the bottom, on the bottom floor will help them. Or you know what, I'm a mother of 3 children and they're all asleep. I can't possibly help. So maybe I can depend on, you know, the other people on the other side of the apartment block to help her. Someone else will help. So when you keep passing the baton or you keep passing the parcel, and that parcel is the responsibility to help from one person to another, thinking that the next person is going to help this woman, eventually no one helps her, okay? Because everyone thinks that everyone else is going to help her instead. And that is what we call as the bystander effect, that when you are in a situation where there are a lot of other people around you and someone is in dire need of help, you just pass the parcel of responsibility to the other person, thinking that definitely they will help. But they have the same thoughts as you. They think that the next person will help. And eventually everyone just stands by. That's where the word bystander comes from. Stands by and does nothing, okay? And that's what the bystander effect is about. And Kitty's case is so famous because she was the case, or she was the real life case that actually prompted the coining of the term bystander effect. Okay, and this is obviously a picture of Kitty here. So that's essentially going to inform the rest of our understanding of helping behavior. And it's a really important case for you to know as well. So now we're looking at what are the actual situational and personal factors that actually lead to whether we help someone or not. So the first thing we're looking at, what are the factors relating to the actual situation, the actual circumstance that impact or that influence whether we will help or whether we will not help. And you can use the memory tip to knit to remember these. So N standing for noticing the situation, I standing for how we interpret the situation, and T standing for the eventual thing, which is taking responsibility for helping. So do we show the bystander effect, just standing by waiting for other people to help, or do we actually go in and get ourselves involved? So that is basically the 3 situational factors. So let's go into them in a little bit more depth now. The first one is called noticing the situation. So this is the basic idea that we're more likely to help someone if we're alone compared to if we are in a group. And the reason for this is that when we are alone, when we're not distracted by other people in our group, we're more likely to focus on what's happening around us, and we're more likely to notice something that is different or that is unusual. Now, if you've ever thought about, when you go out with your friends or, with your peers, and, you're essentially just, distracted, okay? You start to distract each other. You start to, you don't really get to notice what's happening around you as much. Whereas when we're talking about being alone, when you're alone, you're more familiar with what's happening around you. You're more kind of focused with what's happening around you. Okay, so that's why this idea that we focus more on what's happening around us when we're alone, and we're more likely to notice something that is different or unusual. And so when we notice the situation, that's the first step to us actually helping, okay? Because if we don't notice what's happening around us, we don't see anything as being abnormal or unusual, we're not likely to step in to help because we haven't noticed anything that's unusual in that situation. So noticing the situation is the first step. It doesn't mean that the person will necessarily help. Okay, a lot of us notice situations, but we don't necessarily step in to help. But noticing the situation is the first step to getting there, to getting to the point of actually helping someone. The second step is how we interpret the situation. So sometimes, a lot of the time, especially in certain situations, in public places, it's hard for you to interpret. It's hard for you to actually judge the situation, okay? Interpreting the situation is all about how do you judge a situation. So if we look at this picture here, this guy, has he actually fainted and is he unconscious, or is he just a really tired construction worker who's just having a nap? We don't know, okay? We can't really judge from this scenario. There's nothing around him that suggests that he is a construction worker, but then there's nothing around him that really suggests that he has, fallen unconscious from drinking alcohol. There's no sense of drugs around him or anything like that. So again, it's a really ambiguous situation. And when situations are ambiguous or unclear to us, we're not likely to help because we're really unsure of whether we need to help or not. And, as humans, we're really kind of funny people in the sense that we would rather not help someone because we feel like, what if I help this person? What if I go up to this person and say, hey, are you okay? And he starts screaming at me because I've just destroyed his sleep. Okay, so we generally tend to be quite conscious of those kinds of things. Now, if a situation is clear to us, for example, if this guy's lying on the floor and he's screaming in pain and saying, oh my God, I can't move my legs, then we are obviously going to be more sure that he is in need of help. And obviously, we're going to be more likely to show helping behavior. So it's not always just dependent on us and our choice to help. It is dependent on how obvious it is that somebody in a situation or in an environment needs that help, okay? And if a situation looks a bit ambiguous to us, or we're unclear as to what's happening, we might be unsure of whether we need to step in and help, okay? So the more clear the situation is, the more clear we can interpret and judge that situation. And for that reason, the more likely we will be to help. Now, taking responsibility for helping. This is the part where we actually talk about, okay, do we actually help or do we simply show the bystander effect? Now, taking responsibility for helping is getting to that stage where we've noticed the situation, we've interpreted the situation and judged the situation clearly, and now it's really on us. Do we choose to take the responsibility to intervene or to help? Okay, now this usually happens, like I said before, generally if we are the only person or the only two people around, we're more likely to help. If this old lady here is having trouble carrying her groceries, or she needs a little bit of support and there's no one else around her, it's only this mom and this daughter that's around her, the mom and daughter might actually go up to her and say, hi, can we help you with your groceries? Do you need some help? Do you need some support? Are there any more groceries you need to take in? Okay, all that kind of stuff. Whereas if this lady was in a public place where there's hundreds of people around her, the likelihood that this mother and this daughter would actually ask her if she needs help is quite low, because again, the diffusion of responsibility, you're passing that baton, you're passing that parcel of responsibility to the next person, thinking that the next person will help. So generally, the more people around a particular person, the less likely we are to help. The less people that are around, the more likely that you are going to feel that there is an onus, that there is a duty on you to help because you're the only person around. Okay, and the bystander effect, like we said, tends to happen when there's more people around. So if there's more people in an environment, generally you are going to show the bystander effect. And another example is, look, if someone faints in the middle of the school courtyard, okay, a student faints, if you're the only, if it's not lunchtime, if it's just a normal class period and you and your friend are the only person there, obviously there's no teachers around on yard duty, there's no other big groups of students or older groups of students, you're the only one there. So you're going to straight away run up to maybe, your coordinator's office or SWB's office, or you're going to run to the first aid. You're going to do something because you're the only two people there. Okay. Whereas if it's just lunchtime or if it's recess time, you know that, okay, the yard duty teacher will take care of it. I don't have to get involved. Okay. So again, that's another example where the more people there are around you, the less likely you are to help. But if it's just you and another person or very few people around, there is a duty, the focus or the onus goes on you to actually show that helping behavior there. Alrighty, so the next thing that we're looking at now is the social factors. So what are the social factors that impact whether we will help someone or not? The first one is called the reciprocity norm, okay? And the reciprocity norm basically suggests that reciprocal means like, when someone does something for you, you do something for them. It like goes both ways. So the before we talk about the reciprocity norm, we have to know what norms are. Now, norm comes from the word normal, which refers to some kind of standard or some kind of set expectation. So social norms are standards or rules which tell us what we should do, how we should behave in different social situations. Okay, they're basically social rules. Now, the reciprocity norm is a type of social rule relating to helping behavior that actually suggests that we should help people who help us. Okay, if you've got a friend who's really good at psychology, they're really good at the research methods part of psychology, and they help you for the research method SAC. They might expect that next time they need help from you because maybe you're really good at chemistry, that you would help them because they're struggling with chemistry a little bit. Okay, that's the reciprocity norm. We do to others, or we treat others in the way that they would treat us and in the way that they would help us. Okay, we don't just leave someone in the dark if they've been helping us all this time, and we just leave them in the dark when they require some help from us. Okay, so that's essentially what the reciprocity norm is. And a lot of us do feel a sense of duty that when someone helps us, even if we can't help them back, we do something for them. We take them out to lunch, or we get them a small gift, or we tell them how much we appreciated that. Okay, we do something for them because, again, not all people can reciprocate or return the favor. If you donate to a cause that helps children in poverty, those children are never going to be able to return the favor to you. Okay, the chances of you ever seeing them in real life again would be quite low, and they are in a situation where they are in a different position than you. They're not able to return the favor. Infants, okay, no matter how much your mum says, oh my God, I carried you for 9 months, you're so ungrateful. Again, when you were an infant, you could never return the favor to your mum. Okay, you could probably be a good child, but infants don't know what's good and what's bad. They can just act on their impulses. Okay, children are not always in a position where they can return the favor, okay, to a teacher or to an adult or to an older sibling that helps them, for example. The elderly may not always be in such good health that they can return the favor. The disabled may not always be in a position where they can return the favor. Okay, homeless people who you help or who you volunteer to help, they might not always be able to return the favor. So certain things we have to remember, even though a lot of the time we do expect that we should that people who we help should also help us, we can't always expect reciprocity in that sense, or we can't always expect that someone will repay the favor to us. Okay, so that's the kind of condition when it comes to reciprocity norm. Alrighty, and the next social factor that we're looking at that influences helping behavior is called the social responsibility norm. And the social responsibility norm is talking about the fact that we should help other people simply because it's our duty or our responsibility to do so. Okay, so when we're talking about it's our duty or our responsibility, that's the key kind of aspect here. Okay, so for example, there are certain social norms that happen around us, and regardless of what culture you go into, regardless of what situation or where you come from, there are certain things that as humans, we feel we have a social responsibility towards. So for example, if I'm sitting on a bus or a train and a pregnant woman comes in and she's heavily pregnant, it's not fair to make her stand up on that train or that bus. So I would essentially, as a good social citizen, I would get up and I would give her my seat. And you would have seen this happen multiple times, or you might have done this yourself, because we feel that it is our social responsibility to give our seat to someone who needs it, whether that be a pregnant woman, whether that be a mother who's got a lot of children and it's hard for her to stand up, whether that be someone who is, disabled, for example. A lot of the time people sit in the disabled, the handicapped part of that, the handicapped seat of the train, okay, which is meant for people with mobility issues. And essentially, if a person does get on the train who needs that seat, you would automatically give that seat to them, because that is their right and that is your duty to do that. Okay, so that's basically what we talk about when we talk about the social responsibility norm. Okay, however, we have to remember that we can be selective as well in terms of how we help, even in line with the social responsibility norm. So if someone needs help due to something that happened out of their control, and this is a lot of the reason why appeals, fundraising, all these things work, because generally if someone needs help due to something that happened out of their control, like their home got destroyed in a bushfire, their home got destroyed in a flood, or they were the victim of a robbery, okay? All of these things are external events, and we're more likely to feel sorry for them and help them. So when we feel like this person didn't bring these things upon themselves, we generally help them to a greater extent. However, and this is where people can be, again, kind of strange, is that, however, if we believe someone needs help as a result of some problem they may have created for themselves, for example, an alcohol issue, a gambling issue, a drug addiction issue, we might be less likely to help them, because we think that even though they genuinely may need that help, we think that, oh, you know what, they just created this for themselves. They literally brought themselves into this problem, and why should I help them, okay? And this is part of the reason why a lot of the time, if you've ever walked through the city, walked through the CBD, you'll notice there are a lot of homeless people there. And the amount of people that will actually stop to help those people, to donate some money, to talk to them even, is really, really low, because a lot of the time there is a stigma around homeless people that they are homeless because they just, spent all their money on drugs, or they just spent all their money on alcohol or gambling, and it's their fault. And that isn't fair, because again, homelessness has a wide variety of reasons, but the general stigma, or the general accepted negative view, is that that is how people become homeless. And so that affects your helping behavior towards homeless people. Okay, that's the social responsibility norm. Again, there are conditions to how we apply the social responsibility norm, but in most cases, we generally feel a social responsibility to help. And the last thing that we're looking at today is the personal factors. So obviously, even if the environment is correct, even if I've interpreted the situation differently, even if I feel that there's a duty to help, personal factors are the last kind of factor that will determine to what extent I will actually go through and help, okay? And personal factors are related to the individual person, and you can use the memory tip see me, so C for competence, M for mood, E for empathy, to remember the 3 personal factors. And remember, it's like personal means like it's me, so see me is kind of like your memory tip for that, okay? So the first thing we're going through is competence. Now, your individual competence ability, competence means your ability to help someone, okay? When we say someone is competent, it means that they have a good ability to do it. So to what extent do you have a good ability to help someone? Do you have the skills required to help someone, okay? If someone is drowning at the beach, or if someone is drowning in a pool, but you don't know how to swim, you can't go in and help. You have to call the lifeguard. You have to call someone who is a good, competent swimmer. Because if you go in to help and try to be the hero of the day, you might drown yourself, and you might drown the other person in the process. Okay, so that's why a lot of the time we might want to help. We might feel that it's a responsibility to help, but we don't actually have the skills. We don't have the competence to help in that given situation. Okay, now certain times a lot of people actually do, they upskill, they develop their skills, they develop their knowledge so that they can help in situations like this. So whenever a person completes first aid and CPR, yeah, sometimes they do require it for their job, but sometimes they know that if a situation comes up where a student has been bitten by, an insect, or a student has fainted, or a student has, lost breathing, they know what to do in order to help, just until the nurses or the ambulance comes. Okay, so sometimes competence is something we have inside us, but sometimes it's something that we can build up as well. Okay, and a lot of the time, if you are in a situation where you're always at the beach, or if you are in a situation where you are always bumping into people who, for example, have issues with like staying conscious or things like that, or you're working in those kinds of settings, then obviously upskilling and developing ability and competence in those areas would be the best thing to do and would allow you to engage in helping behavior. Mood. So our mood also indicates, just as our mood governs and dictates everything else that we do in our life, mood also influences your helping behavior. So obviously we're more likely to help people when we're in a good mood compared to when we're in a bad mood. It's really simple common sense. Mood and helping behavior also shows a bidirectional relationship. So bidirectional relationship means it goes two ways. Happy people tend to be helpful people, which means that if I'm happy, I'm going to be helpful. And when I help people, it's also going to make me feel happy. It's going to make me feel good. So it's a two-way relationship when it comes to mood and helping behavior. So if we ever ask you, explain what is meant by mood and helping behavior showing a bidirectional relationship, you're just going to give me all of this explanation here. Okay, and that's essentially what the two-way relationship is about. Now, example, if you buy someone a gift or you get them a treat, they are more likely to be happy and they might be more ready to help you. And a lot of the time, you might have actually tried this out with your friends or your parents, where you try to get them in a really good mood. You really butter them up. You really get them in a really good point, good point of view, or good position in terms of like how their mood is. And then you essentially ask them for that help. And a lot of the time, if you're ever asking your parents for something, you might try to ask them while they're in a good mood. You wouldn't really ask them when they're in a really bad mood. Okay, so essentially when people are in a good mood, whether it's yourself, whether it's other people, regardless of age, they're more likely to help you. Okay, when they're in a bad mood, they're more likely going to say, get out of here, I don't want to help you, I'm not even in the mood to help you. So that's essentially the relationship between mood and helping behavior. And the last thing that we're looking at for today is empathy. So empathy is the ability to identify with and understand another person's feelings or difficulties. In other words, empathy is about putting yourself in another person's shoes, understanding things from their point of view and from their perspective. Okay, so that's essentially what empathy is about. Now, if we can see how another person is struggling and we can understand how they feel, we are more likely to essentially help them. Okay, so examples of this is that if you've lost a sibling at a young age, or if you've lost a parent at a young age, and you grow up as an adult, okay, and you grow up and you're an adult now, and you see a GoFundMe page, and GoFundMes are really prime modern day examples of helping behavior, where we don't even have to physically help someone. We can help someone just through the internet, just by donating to a fund that we're passionate about. Okay, GoFundMes are really interesting in that sense. Anyway, if you're like, if you've lost a pet at a young age, let's say, and you grow up and you remember how sad you were when you lost your first kitten, or you lost your first cat, or your first dog, or whatever, and you grow up and now you're an adult and you see a GoFundMe page created by literally like a 10-year-old who's lost their pet and whose parents are not allowing them to buy another pet. So maybe this girl or this boy is raising a little bit of money, maybe just like $200 or something, to get a new pet. Because that really pulls at your heartstrings, because that really makes you remember how you felt when you were that age and you lost your pet, you are going to be more likely to help that child. You're going to be more likely to donate a good amount of money to help that child get the pet and boost their GoFundMe progress. Okay, so that's essentially what empathy is. When you ignite people's feelings of empathy and you really pull at their heartstrings and you really get them to feel how you must be feeling and experience what you must be feeling, people will be more likely to help. And this is why a lot of this emotional appeal, a lot of this adding a lot of emotions when you're asking for help can actually impact whether people help you or not. Okay, now sometimes people will help others to relieve their own stress. So again, sometimes we do it because of selfish motives, like we're stressed and we feel like if we help other people, we'll feel better about ourselves. But sometimes people help other people simply out of the simple idea of helping the person and bringing them ease. They don't care whether there's anything in it for them. They don't care about how good they'll feel after they do the task. They're simply helping them because they want to bring some benefit and some comfort to the victim. And that's what we call as altruistic, okay? Altruistic or altruism is about helping other people simply for the idea of helping them and for benefiting them and bringing them some good without any selfish motives or anything like, oh, I'm going to feel good after I do this kind of thing. It's all about the other person and bringing them some kind of benefit there from your helping behavior. Alrighty, so that's empathy. And I think that brings us to the end of today's spreads. Yeah, so for the rest of the lesson, I just want you guys to, again, I have put this checklist up on the school box. These are the spreads that you need to do for today. Now, not all of them. You look at your version of the textbook. So for example, new version of the textbooks only have to do 10.21, 10.23, and 10.25. And old versions only have to do 10.22, 10.24, and 10.26. So wherever it says NA, don't worry about that. Just skip to the next one, okay? But yeah, that's about it for today. So without further delaying you guys, I'm going to let you go and finish off those activities, okay? Bye.